Hey guys, today we're going to talk about how to kill black mold. I see a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of articles just in general online that the main points, they're always talking about killing black mold or killing this mold or killing that mold. So I wanted to kind of talk about that today. So the first thing with this is that title is kind of misleading. So we're not really going to talk about how to kill mold. But what we're going to talk about is what actually the EPA recommends. So if you go to the EPA's website and look at their information about mold, they'll talk about how it's not necessarily that we want to try to kill mold, but the main thing is that we want to remove the mold. And the reason for this is if you just kill the mold, so even the dead mold spores can still be cause for allergies. So basically, even if you go in there and you're able to sterilize all the surfaces and, the bleach works, it actually kills everything, you're still left with the mold spores that, are left over from cleaning. So what the EPA recommends is basically if there's any material, that gets wet, that is a porous material, that material should just be removed in general anyway. So like, for example, if you had, a piece of drywall or something like that, once it gets wet, there's really no use in trying to clean that drywall because you're not going to be able to clean it, all the way through. And again, even if you were to sterilize that product, sterilize that surface completely, the dead spores there are still an allergy issue. So the other point about this is when people talk about black mold, they're referring to the organism Stachybotrys. And so with this mold in general, it takes a lot of water and a specific food source for it to be produced anyway. So for it to show up in your home, it's not going to be like a simple condensation issue where, say your bathroom vent's not running or something like that. It would have to be an actual water damage event for Stachybotrys to show up inside of your home. And so once you've had that water damage event, the next thing, if you try to just go in there and clean that, that's not going to be sufficient. So even if you were to clean it, if there's still ongoing water damage, that's going to continuously come back. So again, you'd have to get to the root of the problem. So the root of the problem when it comes to black mold or Stachybotrys is that whatever area that this is growing in, there's been some type of water damage. And the water damage could have been from a leak, a flood, say you left the sink running or something and, something flooded. So until you fix that problem, there's no use worrying about anything else. So you have to fix that problem first. The next thing you should do is to think about the materials that were affected by the water. So if it's a porous material, like let's just say that example with the sink. If the sink overflowed and it got onto your countertops, something like that. So like hard countertops can just be cleaned, granite or something like that. But if it were to have gotten under the sink and say there's just a piece of the OSB, the plywood down there, that plywood is most likely going to have to be removed. And the reason why you can't clean it, again, going back to even if you were to sterilize it, it's still going to be a problem because this, the dead spores can cause allergies. The second thing is that with the plywood, once it's gotten that wet, it has become structurally unsound. So it's not sound anymore anyway. So even if you were to clean it, you still got a piece of wood in the structure that should not be there. And again, going back to bleach in general, just using bleach, if you think about it, obviously bleach, most likely bleach is going to be able to kill whatever you put it on, because it's just such a strong chemical. But its effectiveness is also tied to how strong it is. So if you're in an unventilated area, like say, under that cabinet we were talking about, and you're using this product, unless you're using the proper personal protective gear, the bleach itself could actually cause as much or even more harm to your lungs than the mold would have ever caused. So in general, bleach is just a bad idea with this because one, again, we're going back to you can't, even if you were to be able to sterilize everything, that doesn't fix the problem. Two, the bleach can harm the materials that you're putting it on. So if you put bleach on, a painted surface or something like that, it could damage the paint or even damage the surface itself. And then three, the bleach could be, just harmful, just in general. So again, the best thing to do is just to completely remove the mold. So any porous material that you have, like drywall, OSB plywood, once that material has gotten wet enough to where something like Stachybotrys can grow on it, it is past its point to where that material is no longer sound structurally. So that material would need to be removed. If you have a material, say like 2x4s or some type of hardwood material, those materials can be cleaned. And again, you're not trying to kill the mold. You would just try to remove the mold from that surface. So like a 2x4, maybe you would clean it with like a detergent, warm water, and use some type of scrub brush or something so that you can get deep into the material to make sure that it is all removed from the material. And again, anytime you're going to do any of this cleaning, I would wear an N95 mask. You can pick those up for pretty cheap. I'd also probably wear something like goggles, just to make sure that while if you were scrubbing, some of the stuff doesn't fly back into your eyes, things like that. But again, just to recap what we talked about, there's no use in trying to kill the mold. The EPA itself, they've issued statements saying that this is, even if it is possible for you to sterilize the surface, that it's not warranted because you leave behind dead spores that will cause allergies anyway. And two, once the material has gotten that wet, there's no use in cleaning it anyway, especially things like porous materials that you're going to have to remove. And then the third thing is that if you were to use some type of strong chemical like bleach or something like that, it could be more dangerous to you, or just as dangerous as the mold. So it's really just a wash with you trying to clean with something like that. So the best thing is just always just remove the material. When in doubt, just remove the material, and that should be the best practice. Alright, so here you can see us just kind of looking through the microscope, and here in just a second you'll see inside what we're actually looking at. So here it is. This is Stachybotrys right there. You notice they're kind of pill-shaped, oblong. They're very dark, grayish to black, completely black. They're also kind of warty. If you notice around, the camera's got a little jitter when you move it. But yeah, they're kind of warty. If you notice, they have, it's not really like a smooth cell wall. It's more like of a rigid, rigid cell wall. In this photo here, or this video here, you can see also hyphal Those are those stick-like things. And so what that is, that's pretty much similar to like a root system for a tree or plants or something like that. So they use those hyphal fragments to extract nutrients from whatever material that they're growing on. So that's why when you have like a mold, mold growth on a piece of drywall that's gotten wet, so the water has softened up the drywall, but also the enzymes that these hyphal fragments have released have also softened that drywall up. And that goes back to the point of why you have to remove those materials, because they're being physically damaged whenever mold is growing, from water damage like that. So again, you're just looking over those. Let us know what you think. All right, thanks. Yeah, one more thing with this. This is why products like foggers or any type of fogging chemical or service, it just simply doesn't work. So it would be able to lower, like if you were to take an air test before and then they do a fogging and then you take an air test after, that the fogging would appear to work because the first air test is going to be higher than after they do the fogging. But the reason for this is it's almost like the fogging is hiding the results. So when you fog, you're basically creating a high humidity area. So any of the mold spores that are in the air, are going to be attached to, whatever chemical they put in the air. And so as that mist kind of falls down, the mold spores are going to fall down with it. So in essence, it does, clean the air, but it doesn't remove anything from your home. So when all of this happens, whatever type of floor you have, carpet especially, all this stuff is just going to get trapped, back into the carpet. And even if it has sterilized it, and even if it has removed it from the air, you know, now it's just stuck in your carpet. So the fogging stuff is really blown out of proportion. You can do the same type thing with like a HEPA filter. So if you were to get like an air purifier that had a HEPA filtration filter in there, that would actually remove it, you know, from the air. So instead of just taking it from the air and putting it into the floor, you know, the HEPA filtration would actually take it, you know, run your air through a filter, and that filter is going to catch these mold spores. So instead of just moving it from one place to another, you know, to kind of mask the problem, the HEPA filter is actually going to remove the problem, you know, over time. It's not going to be an immediate, you know, the fogging, they could literally fog right now and then you could test right after that and you would see a difference in the test, you know, within 24 hours. The HEPA filtration is going to take a lot longer because just depending on how big your house is, or depending on how many like CFUs that the air filter can pull through it, you know, per hour, or you know, whatever. All that depending, you know, it's going to vary how long it would take. But you know, you can just leave these things running nonstop. A lot of times that's what we recommend to anyone that has like any immune disorders, or people with small children, or elderly, you know, people living in their homes. It's a good idea just to have these HEPA air purifiers just as like a blanket. You know, it's almost like a net, like a safety net. So even if you don't have a substantial mold problem, there's probably allergies allergens in your home, likely. So the air purifier is just a good idea in general.